FHS season tickets.
Welcome into another episode of FHS Season Tickets. I'm Michael.
And I'm Nick.
And I'm Miles.
And today we're going to be talking about Week 2 college football games, picking them, starting off with the first big game of the weekend, only doing the ranked versus ranked matchups. Auburn versus Clemson, a rematch of last year's game, which was surprisingly closer than what a lot of people did expect. Auburn put up a good fight. Started off a pretty solid season for the Auburn Tigers. A lot of people had them not as high last year, but they have a really talented team this year. Gus Malzahn just has a group that is going to be able to compete for an SEC West title. Obviously, you have Alabama as the major roadblock there. But Clemson, they looked really impressive against Kent State, but it's Kent State, so I'm not sure how much you really want to take away from that performance. But I'm going to make my first prediction here. I'm going to take Clemson in a really tight game. I think their defensive line gets after Jarrett Stidham, and their offense makes just enough plays. They'll be able to hold off Auburn in a very close game. Nick, I'll go to you next.
Yeah, I agree with your points on the defensive line for Clemson. Christian Wilkins on there should be a beast, so I'm thinking Clemson comes away with a win against Auburn too. Not as close as Michael thinks though.
I'd say Clemson as well. I don't know if it'll be that close either, but.
Well, let's go into the second game. Nick, what's the second biggest game of the week, or actually probably the biggest game of the week?
Yeah, definitely, in my opinion, the biggest game of the week. I don't think Clemson and Auburn compare to this one. This is going to be a bang showdown to OSU, Oklahoma. We've had a couple of these series past couple of years, but and OSU has dominated, and I think that trend continues. OSU has a monster team this year, watching all the other competition. I saw a lot of holes in the beginning against Indiana, but I think that was just the talent working its way out in the beginning of the season. You have talent all over the board. The cornerbacks looking like the defensive backfield looking like the worst out of that bunch. But then you look deeper into the talent. You have guys like obviously Denzel Ward, Kendall Sheffield, Damon Arnett. All of those guys could be develop into some ballers this year. And then their D-line is the best in football. I think the best in a few years in football, actually, a defensive line. Those guys go like 3 deep. They have probably the best front four, in my opinion, in college. Obviously, you got the perfect combination of size and speed and power with Bosa, Tyquan Lewis, Sam Hubbard. All those guys are just jump off the charts at you when you look at their power and speed combination. And then obviously the offense. Urban Meyer is probably like the best with having a dual threat team when it comes to defense and offense. And their offense will definitely get after it. I think JT Barrett has a better season than most people think. But even if he doesn't, you have the running back position playing really well, a good offensive line, and good wide receivers. I don't think this team can go wrong much, and I think they easily make it in the college football playoffs. But OU, I mean, you have guys like Baker Mayfield, but I just think they get outclassed talent-wise. Miles, what do you think?
Yeah, I definitely agree. I think Ohio State literally has one of the best defensive lines like in college football. I think they can prove that this year too. And I have Ohio State, obviously. What do you think, Mike?
I'm going to go with Ohio State as well. Last year, they just physically dominated Oklahoma in Norman. And now with the new head coach for Oklahoma, losing basically all their skill position players from last year, they just returned really Baker Mayfield on that offense. He had a big week against UTEP, but once again, it's UTEP, so not much you can really take from that. I think Ohio State's defense really does get after Baker Mayfield, makes life difficult on him. I think it could be a lower scoring game than some people are really predicting because obviously both teams have high-powered offenses, but I feel like Ohio State's cornerbacks, like you mentioned, are going to have a really good game, and also you said that JT Barrett struggled, so I think while Ohio State will easily score enough points that they'll be able to win like a 38-28 type game, I don't think it's like a 45-42 type game, and I think a lot of people...
is low scoring you?
I mean, for college football and for two of the high-powered offenses in the country, yeah, it's a lower scoring game than people predict. I think it's going under the total.
I'm thinking 30,
whatever.
Yeah, I thought you were thinking like 17-10 or something.
No, it's not like Big Ten, like
NFL,
Michigan versus Michigan State, like back in the day type games. But it's going to be, I think, more of a defensive struggle than a lot of people predict. Miles, what's the next big game we're going into?
Yeah, for our third big game, we have USC and Stanford. And I know what these guys are going to say, but I do have USC. I think they're taking Stanford. You want to explain?
Well, I'm going to go with Stanford. I was not impressed at all by Sam Darnold in the opening weekend against Western Michigan. I took Western Michigan against the spread. They got a really nice cover there, plus 27, only lost by, I do think, 18 points. So that was a nice victory for me. And Sam Darnold just looked bad, but obviously USC has some crazy playmakers that they are going to be able to get the ball to out in space. They're faster than Stanford, but Stanford looked really impressive. Guys like Bryce Love had a big game against Rice, but it's Rice, so I'm not sure how much you really want to take away from that game. That's really the problem in all these Week 2 matchups. Like, nobody's really played good teams so far, so you really have no idea how good these teams are. But I'm going to take Stanford, as David Shaw has seemed to have the Trojans' number recently, and I think the USC team is in for a much bigger learning curve and a slow start than a lot of people are predicting. Nick, who are you going to go with?
Yeah, Mike took my upset pick. Definitely think it's a major trap game for USC. Getting Stanford Week 2 after all this preseason hype and all this build-up for this season. Sam Darnold struggling, and Stanford, like you said, always has USC's number. They always seem like they just are winning the mental warfare. David Shaw out-coaching anyone that USC employs, because they've had a lot of coaches in the past. But I think that Stanford wins this game, and I think that a lot of the national media is surprised, and we're going to see a lot of USC's flaws exposed. Not saying they won't bounce back in the season, but I'm definitely thinking that the major trap game will work for sure.
Well, Nick, we've got one more ranked versus ranked matchup, and it includes your Notre Dame Fighting Irish.
The biggest game of the week, in my opinion. Notre Dame versus Georgia. I don't know why we spent time on those other teams. I think Notre Dame is surprisingly new Notre Dame team this year, looking like a rushing offense more. This comes from the new offensive coordinator, just a whole rebuild inside Notre Dame, even without a new coach. Brian Kelly wasn't fired, but it's a whole new mentality, I feel like, for this team. So a lot of rushing. I don't know how it's going to play against Georgia. We still have Brandon Wimbush who can make plays, and then we have the athletes on the defense. I just don't know how much elite talent we have all across the board, but I'm thinking it's going to be a closer game than most people may think, with Georgia playing well early on, being a good SEC team. I've even seen them number 1 in the SEC, so we'll see.
Number 1 in the... Wow, that's interesting.
Oh, yeah, with
Miles
Jacob Eason, and so...
Well, Eason's hurt.
Oh, really?
Yeah, he's out for a couple weeks, not for the year like
We're
Francois.
waiting, boys!
They do have a solid backup, which, he looked good.
That backup's going to get destroyed. Notre Dame.
Mike, who do you have?
I'm going to go with Notre Dame. I actually was liking Georgia before Eason got hurt, and as I did kind of hype up
Don't think this does you any favors, Mike. Vanderbilt still sucks.
Well, I obviously loved Notre Dame against Temple, as you guys saw in my betting predictions. I think that they have a lot of playmakers that are just going to be able to get the ball in space, and they're going to be able to match up with Georgia. And also, I think their offensive line is going to be an advantage over the Bulldogs. Georgia, a young but very talented team. I think that going in a road environment in South Bend, Indiana, is going to be a problem for the Bulldogs. A little bit colder of a game than they are going to be used to be playing. So I think that all signs point to advantage Notre Dame. But I do think Georgia does keep it close despite losing. Miles, where are you going to go with?
I do have Notre Dame as well, but Nick, I have a question. How's your defense looking? I actually haven't checked it out.
They're looking all right. I mean, cornerbacks maybe got a little bit better.
It was Temple.
The cornerbacks maybe got a little bit better from last year. Not saying it was a lot. The athleticism.
So they didn't give up over 50 points to Texas week 1.
What was Randy's record the past few years?
I mean, last year it was better than Notre Dame's.
Dude, James Franklin's looking really good in that Nittany Lions uniform.
I think that Notre Dame will win by 4 to 8 points.
James Franklin looks better than in black.
All in all, from my side, I think the only thing we got to focus on is Notre Dame's defense, and I think Notre Dame's O-line, and obviously their rushing team is definitely improved, so it's going to be exciting to watch.
Dude, to think Saquon Barkley could have been in the Vanderbilt uniform.
And Trace McSorley.
But
he was originally committed to Vandy, too. Just such a shame, but...
Aren't there so many missed prospects at Vanderbilt?
Jalen Tabor, too. He was supposed to go there before Franklin left. Just running off his sad names. Anything else you guys want to talk about before we wrap it up?
I think we did good previewing.
All right, that'll wrap it up for this video. Hope you guys enjoyed. If you did, make sure to leave a like and also subscribe for more season ticket videos.